We are back for part 3 of the Bishop Larry Gaiters series on eugenics, identity politics, and the links between the Nation of Islam and Scientology. Now, I was just speaking with the bishop. However, Bishop, you there? It's then saying poor network connection. Bishop, can you hear me? We've lost the bishop. That's amazing how that always happens. Here he is. Okay. Bishop, have we got you?
Okay.
Bishop, you're back. We're live.
Okay.
You hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Excellent.
We were cut off this way. Yes,
no problem. Good to have you back, Bishop. Happy 2020. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I know that viewers of Crowdsource the Truth and fans of the Global Spiritual Revolution Radio are excited to hear part 3 of your series. It's really been blowing my mind. Your series on identity politics and the links between Scientology and the Nation of Islam, as well as eugenics.
Yes, this is mind-blowing and mind-wrecking, and we're going to get into this new platform entitled Scientology, the Third Opium War of Deception. Now, people may say, well, Bishop, what does the Opium Wars have anything to do with the Church of Scientology? I'm going to tie something into between one man by the name of Vonnie Matheson, who created the e-meter for L. Ron Hubbard, and he was a direct descendant of a James Matheson, going back to the 1800s, Jason, who was responsible for both Opium Wars 1 and Opium War 2. It's mind-blowing. And so I'm really excited and ready to get started into this. This is going to wreck people's minds here today.
Now, Bishop, I'm not sure that everybody knows what the e-meter is.
The e-meter, it's a electronic psychometer device that the Church of Scientology claims that they created through L. Ron Hubbard, but in actuality, there was a man by the name of Vonnie Matheson, capital Volney Matheson. Now, it's very interesting that there's a lot of scholars in regards to the Church of Scientology stating that the e-meter was not just created by Vonnie Matheson, but in actuality, it goes back to the Third Reich, So we're talking about Vonnie Matheson, being a descendant of a James Matheson concerning the 2 Opium Wars, which we're going to get into later. But this e-meter is a present-day MK Ultra machine. That's all it is, Jason.
Wow.
And it's manufactured out of Hong Kong and Taiwan, And so it's $5,000. And so what is so fascinating as we get into the Scientology, and now a lot of your listeners who are Scientologists, I am not bashing them. I don't do that. My job is to expose what the words Dianetics and the word Scientology means. So I want to start just quickly in the next 5 to 10 minutes concerning the Nation of Islam that I just found out that for your listeners, Louis Farrakhan was inducted into the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. That is a boule. In other words, that's a boule organization, Omega Psi Phi. And your listeners can go to theroot.com, or just type in Louis Farrakhan inducted into the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Now, why is that so important? When we talk about the boule quickly here, and I'm wondering in my mind, was thinking this past week, and why was Louis Farrakhan so enamored, so excited about joining the Church of Scientology? The Boule Secret Society oversees what we call the Divine Nine. in the National Pan-Hellenic Council, okay, of 9 secret societies, Black secret societies, 5 fraternities, and 4 sororities. So 5 men secret societies and 4 women secret societies, okay? And so you're talking about Alpha Phi Alpha, okay, and Omega Psi Phi. So I just found out, Jason, quickly here, that Louis Farrakhan, who is now connected to the hip, to the Church of Scientology, is actually a Omega Psi Phi Boule. And not just Louis Farrakhan. We talked about Dick Gregory.
Yeah.
Dick Gregory was a Boule. Dick Gregory, when he was in university, he was a part of the Alpha Phi Alpha secret society. So both Louis Farrakhan and Dick Gregory were both Boulets. So then the term Boule, quickly, before we get into the Scientology here, Boule not only means gatekeepers, okay, but the term, when you study Greek Hellenic government, the term Boule, Jason, represents the lower level of Greek parliament, even today. So the term Boule not only means gatekeeper or the protector or the guardian, okay, of the Illuminati system, including the Church of Scientology, but the term Boule also represents the lower level of the Greek parliament, who are subordinates to those that are above them. I really want your listening audience to really examine that, because the term Boule also means protector of the round table. Now, remember the story of the Knights of the Round Table, okay? And quick, before we get into the Church of Scientology, because this is very critical here. So the historical Knights of the Round Table, where you have 13 knights, and some scholars say there were as high as 150 knights, but 13 knights representing the 13 Illuminati families today. The first 9 represents families of illumination. The remaining 4 are representing the 4 corners of this global Illuminati system, which we're going to connect to the Church of Scientology in the next few minutes. So the 9 Knights of the Round Table, Jason, represents the 9 families of the earth that control 99% of the wealth on the earth today. So as we're breaking this down, that each family then is protected, get this, Jason, by a Boule secret society family. So you have 9 knights around the Knights of the Round Table who own the table, Jason, who are protected by what we call the Divine 9 of the Pan-Hellenic Council of Black Boule, Black Greek letter societies. In other words, this is powerful. Each Illuminati family is protected by a Boule secret society. So the secret society, the Boule secret society, does not own the table. They just protect the table. I want your Black listeners to listen to this. They don't own the table. They are protectors of the table. So before we get into Scientology, the third opium war of deception, man, I'm excited about this topic today. If you get a chance, Jason, look up Dr. Charles H. Wesley, capital Wesley. Okay, he wrote a book entitled History of Sigma Pi Phi. Again, History of Sigma Pi Phi, where he outlines the Divine 9. When he says the Divine 9, 9 Black Greek lettered secret societies that he breaks down. Okay, so the 9 Black Greek secret societies protect each of the Knights of the Round Table, according to Dr. Charles H. Wesley. on page 146 of the history of Sigma Pi Phi. I don't think that the average person, your listeners, Jason, they don't know how deep this goes. So the Boule logo, okay, it has a half a man, a half a woman, a half an animal. And I really don't want to get into this today, but I wanted to touch on the Boules because they represent the protectors, okay?
Isn't that
Now,
too many halves, Bishop?
what was that? What was that, Jason? I'm sorry.
Too many halves, no? Half a man, half a woman, half a animal?
Yeah, half a man, half a woman, half an animal with this right paw on what we call an urn, capital URN, which they keep ashes of dead people. But there is a symbol on that urn which represents the wheel within the wheel within the wheel. In other words, the middle of the wheel within the wheel is the nine Illuminati families or the Knights of the Round Table, which Dr. Charles H. Wesley says on page 146 of the history of Sigma Pi Phi, that each family is protected, Jason. This is demonic, by a Boule Black Greek lettered society, which we call the Divine Nine Pan-Hellenic Council. Why Hellenic? Because the term Boule, Jason, represents the lower level of the Greek parliament today, who are the protectors of that which they are subordinate to. So they don't own the table, but they protect the table.
Right.
So then, as we're talking about the Scientology, the third Opium War of Deception, this is the reason why the Nation of Islam represents Omega Psi Phi through Louis Farrakhan, assigned to protect the Church of Scientology. Mind you, the Boules, they're gatekeepers. They don't own the table. They rent the table. So then quickly here, before we get into Scientology, the third Opium War of Deception, according to Dr. Charles H. Wesley, in the book History of Sigma Pi Phi on page 146, in 1941, Jason, there was a Boule Secret Society convention in Los Angeles, California, that took place in Griffin Park. Now, why is the term Griffin so important?
Right.
The term Griffin means gargoyle. So the term Boule in French also means gargoyle or griffin. But they had their convention, Jason, which they have every 2 years in Los Angeles at Griffin Park, within the Greek amphitheater of Griffin Park. And the person that oversaw the convention was a man by the name of Dr. Emmett Scott, who secretly, Jason, was working with President Woodrow Wilson to take over Tuskegee University from Booker T. Washington, who died mysteriously in 1915 from complications of syphilis. So the Boule is here protecting the global Illuminati system.
Bishop, forgive me for interrupting, but wasn't there some link to syphilis being basically given to Black people by some experiment?
Absolutely. When you type in, that's a great question, Jason. When you type in syphilis conspiracy on Tuskegee University, it will give you multiple links as to this conspiracy, which really goes back to the early 1900s. Booker T. Washington was a good man, even though he was a Boule, but he left the Boule a month before his death, just like Dr. Martin Luther King did, and they killed both of these men. And the question we have to ask ourselves, that's a great question, Jason, that you just asked. Why did Woodrow Wilson activate this syphilis conspiracy of wanting to inject 600 men and women with syphilis in order to see how the anatomy of a Black person would respond. But the Boulets that were in charge of the syphilis conspiracy was Dr. Emmett Scott. So Dr. Emmett Scott was the door, the conduit for the U.S. federal government through Woodrow Wilson to start this syphilis conspiracy, which really didn't start, Jason, until years later in 1932, okay, with the $5 million grant the year before from Julius Rosenwald, the man that this name keeps popping up on the radar, okay, for the past month. So then the Boule Secret Society, the Griffin, they are the watchdog, okay? They are the guardians of the order. They don't own the order, they protect the order. So in other words, these Boulets are the ones who are protecting the same system that has enslaved Black America for 465 years.
Now, Bishop, is it, sorry to interrupt again, but is it Griffin Park or Griffith Park? There's Griffith Observatory.
Griffith Park, right. Yes. But the acronym for Griffith is Griffin, which also means gargoyle. But about Griffith Park, 3,000 acres of land was donated to the city of Los Angeles, I believe, by a man by the name of Griffith J. Griffith. And so that land was donated, but the convention of the Boule, which also means Griffin, gargoyle, and mind you, in the city here in New York City, I had a city engineer tell me a few years ago, Jason, and I cannot substantiate this, but this is just word of mouth, that there are 666 gargoyles throughout New York City.
Wow.
So I can't substantiate that, but he said that there are approximately 666 gargoyles or Boulets that are built strategically in and around New York City. So then here comes Louis Farrakhan being introduced to Scientology. Now Scientology is the third open war of deception. Now to our listeners, I am not bashing any individual within the Church of Scientology. My assignment is to expose what the words Dianetics and the word Scientology mean. And mind you, David, L. Ron Hubbard was not the creator of Dianetics. Right. Let me say it again. L. Ron Hubbard did not create Dianetics. The Church of Scientology has been propagating a lie since the 1960s that L. Ron Hubbard created Dianetics. He did not. Actually, that goes back, Jason, to the 1600s. Now, the term Dianetics comes from the Greek word dial, which means through the mind, dia, through the mind. It is a process of what we call psychosomatic cleansing, which they call clearing. But they failed to realize, they failed to tell the parishioners, Jason, that the term clear is an acronym for the term clairvoyance. What is clairvoyance? Clairvoyance, the mind. So clairvoyance dominates the religion called Jainism, which they teach extrasensory perception.
Yeah, I was going to say, the word voyance seems to be suggestive of like voyeurism, looking at something, maybe seeing things with the mind.
Exactly. And that is a part, I'm so glad that you brought that up, Jason. Seeing things of the mind, and it's all interconnected into what we call witchcraft. So then, but it's witchcraft wrapped in a name called Dianetics. So it's connected to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, the E-meter. Vonnie Matheson built the E-meter that was based on what he called the Wheatstone Bridge amplifier.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wheatstone Bridge. Sir Charles Wheatstone was an inventor in the 19th century. I know that because he created the stereoscope, the first 3D viewing device.
Exactly. Thank you. Oh, again, you got me so excited, Jason, as usual. So this even this electropsychometer is designed supposedly to alter or to modify past traumas. But the e-meter is an instrument that goes back to the 1600s. So then, this Dianetics, dia through the mind, cleansing of the mind. But the problem with Dianetics, Jason, that it is based upon the teaching in Jainism of the goddess Diana. I kid you not. So then, L. Ron Hubbard knew Babylonian mysticism. He knew Jainism. He understood Taoism, Shintoism, Confucianism. He understood being a part of the Theosophical Society. So then, this man, L. Ron Hubbard, got all of these religions and these occultic teachings to be mixed into what he calls Scientology. But Dianetics is rooted in the term clairvoyance, to see. So then the auditor, Jason, is a glorified hypnosis. And I know your listeners, some of them who are Scientologists, they will never accept this. My job here is to expose the root meaning of the word. So then Dianetics is also connected to the word thetan. Now, this is interesting here. This is the psychology of L. Ron Hubbard as we're talking about Scientology, the third opium war of deception. The term thetan is a Greek Hellenistical term. It's a name of a god in Greek mythology. And that term thetan, Jason, according to Persian demonology, is a high-ranking demon. But you see, the lower level participants in Scientology, they don't know this. So then the term thetan is an acronym of the word, get this, theta, capital Theta. Oh, here's your black secret societies. Delta, Sigma, Theta, Iota, Phi, Theta. Getting back to the Divine Nine, who are assigned to protect the nine Knights of the Round Table, the Rothschilds, the Oppenheimers, the Warburgs, George Soros, the Bilderbergers, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission. So then the thetan, according to the psychology of L. Ron Hubbard, represents that which must be extracted. But the Church's Scientology is nothing more than a science fiction fantasy. And I'm not bashing any individual. Again, my job and responsibility is to expose this third opium war because Scientology is the opium of the people. So then, the term thetan or theta, delta, sigma, theta, iota, phi, theta, so then, through auditing, Jason, it only cleans the trauma, but does not remove the trauma. Let me say this again. See, through the e-meter, through this electropsychometer that was designed not just by Bonnie Matheson, who is a direct descendant of James Matheson, according to the Oxford Dictionary of British War on Opium Wars, Volume 3, Section 2. But also, this term here, Dianetics, is rooted in the word Dianism. So Dianism was a cult, Jason, going back to the 1800s. Dianism is an occultic practice of activating sexual magic. And this is what L. Ron Hubbard, his friend Jack Parsons, whom he
Right.
lived with, all were a part of. So the Church of Scientology, their foundation is the template of Dionism. So what L. Ron Hubbard did, he took the word Dionism and called it Dianetic. Netic means the mind. We're not going to remove the trauma, but we can only clean the trauma. That is an occultic form of dealing with people through mind control. Now, there's a book called The CIA and the Cult of Intelligence, and which was a book that was banned up until 2 years ago. The CIA and the Cult of Intelligence by Victor Marchetti and John D. Marks. They had said that the term Dianetics is what they call weaponized psychiatry. So then L. Ron Hubbard, and to your listeners, if you get an opportunity, go online and I want all of you to check out L. Ron Hubbard's, I believe in 1947, that he wrote to the VA concerning that he needed psychological help. I kid you not. So then in 1947, he writes a letter to the VA in Los Angeles, California, stating that he needed psychological help. But mind you, he is against psychology, Jason.
Yeah.
He doesn't support the DSM-5, okay, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association. He doesn't.
I recall recently, Bishop, that Tom Cruise was on a talk show, maybe it was 5-10 years ago. He was talking to Matt Lauer about Brooke Shields' postpartum depression, and he got into a whole anti-psychiatry thing.
Yeah, absolutely. See, what they do, Jason, they recruit these stars. John Travolta, I believe Will Smith is in that mess now. And so they recruit these stars, okay? And as far as with that letter, your listeners, just type up L. Ron Hubbard's unanswered letter of despair to the VA. Again, L. Ron Hubbard's unanswered letter of despair to the VA. That's on the military.id.me. Again, military.id.me. So then they use these stars to attract the masses. Again, the question we have to ask ourselves, just through the book, just like what the book says, the CIA and the Cult of Intelligence, why did the CIA allow this cult to even exist today? Because the CIA had a program in 1953 called MK Ultra. Okay?
Yeah.
MK Ultra, where Sidney Gottlieb in April of 1953, along with the intelligence community there in Washington, D.C., activated what they call MK Ultra, where they introduced LSD. Now, the first letter of Lucifer is L, the first letter of Satan is S, the first letter of devil is D, LSD. That's interesting. So Sidney Gottlieb and then instituted what they called MK Ultra, where they would mind control not just those dissidents here in the United States, but around the world. So the MK Ultra program comes into existence just in the same year that the Church of Scientology comes into existence. I'm going to get to that later on. So the first person in recorded history, Jason, to be a practitioner of Scientology before it was termed by L. Ron Hubbard was a man by the name of John Dee, capital D-E-E. So during the 1500s, Jason, John Dee, who always signed letters of the numbers 007, I kid you not. So the 007 moniker came from John Dee. John Dee, for your listeners, as we're talking about Scientology, the third opium war of deception, was an astrologer. He was an occultist. He was a modifier, which we call auditor. Get that? He was a modifier or an auditor. He, John Dee, developed the court of Queen Elizabeth's occultic system. In other words, if you or I wanted to see Queen Elizabeth I, he would have to modify you or to audit you through trance, through a system of occultic hypnosis. Today, the Church of Scientology is doing the same thing. So L. Ron Hubbard did not begin Dianetics nor Dianism, which is rooted in the goddess Diana, and you can find that in the book of Acts in the Bible. So then John Dee created the Rosh Hashanah order, where he created what he calls the 8-point rose cross. And I believe one of your listeners brought this up, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. The 8-pointed rose cross representing the 8 dynamics of life. So then, John Dee was a practitioner of modification or auditing. This goes back to the 1500s, okay?
Well, Bishop, let me pause you a second, because this is very interesting, this 8-pointed rose cross, because it seems to contain religious symbols from Christianity, Judaism. We've got the 6-pointed star here. You've got the pentagram. Well, I even see Hebrew letters on there.
See, that is, and you got a great eye, Jason. See, the Church of Scientology is a mixture, okay? It's a mixture of the Theosophical Society. It's a mixture of what we call the Thelema Society, okay?
Well, right. That's what I was going to say. It sounds like Aleister Crowley stuff with the sex magic that you were talking about, and Jack Parsons and the sex parties that they had. That was all Crowley-esque stuff.
That was exactly. So what L. Ron Hubbard did, and L. Ron Hubbard never received a PhD. Church of Scientology says about L. Ron Hubbard is a lie, that he was a war hero and he was shot and died and resurrected, and all of that is lies, Jason, okay? And so then even the PhD that he claims that he got from a university that no longer exists, Sequoia University, which the federal government shut down in 1984. So then L. Ron Hubbard is a fraudulent person. And he once said that I want to build a religion where I can be a millionaire. That was his intent. But the template, Jason, of Scientology began with John Dee. So then John Dee was a modifier or an alterer. So then as we go forward here, that John Dee also called the court of Queen Elizabeth I, he called her court the Golden Dawn. Why is that word so important, Jason? Well, L. Ron Hubbard's lecture series concerning Dianetics is called the Golden Dawn. And I believe that the term Golden Dawn is a part of the 8-point rose cross, which is a mixture of Christianity and Kabbalistical teaching and Islam. And it's a mixture of Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Shintoism. It's a mixture of Kemetic orthodoxy. It's a mixture, Jason, of what we call philosophical teachings, or from the Philosophical Society through mainly P. Hall. That's all Scientology is. So then the person who enters into a covenant with Scientology through the e-meter, and mind you, every auditor, and to your listeners, those who have been audited by an auditor through an e-meter, every piece of information that you gave that man or woman is stored in a database. The Church of Scientology has an intelligence department. I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. This is demonic. So getting back to John Dee, now we go to the what they call the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which is a part of the Order Templi Orientis of Aleister
Oh,
Crowley.
wow, yeah.
So the term Golden Dawn, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, created by Aleister Crowley. And mind you, Aleister Crowley was a British agent or asset of the British government, where he created the term Thelema,
Yeah.
capital Thelema. Now, there is a root term for the term Thelema, is the Greek word boule. Now, what does boule have anything to do with Thelema? The boule is the protector of the order. A boule doesn't own the order, but they are the guardians of it. So Dianetics is also what we call logistical reasoning. That's Thelema, logistical reason. Now, remember in 1938, L. Ron Hubbard wrote a book called Excalibur, where he says, and that book wasn't even published in 1938, but he said specifically that the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was the template of Aleister Crowley that L. Ron Hubbard stole, which is now called the Church of Scientology.
It's interesting, Bishop, because Excalibur also takes us back to the Knights of the Round Table, doesn't it? It was King Arthur's sword.
Exactly. Oh my God, you're a great host, Jason. It always brings us back to the Knights of the Round Table. So the Knights of the Round Table, we're talking about Rothschild and Oppenheimer, we're talking about the Rockefellers, the Bilderbergs, but each knight is designated a boule, a black secret society that protects them. 65% of black lawyers in this country, Jason, are boulets.
Lawyers, did you say?
65% of black lawyers in this country are boulets.
Wow.
Okay. 45% of the accountants are boulets. So they are assigned a knight to protect. They don't own the table. They're just the guardians of the table. Now, quickly here, as we get to Dianetics or Dianism, which goes back 400 to 500 years before L. Ron Hubbard, then from there, matter of fact, let me say on John Dee here real quick. He would use what we call wax seals or scrying to audit people before they came into the court of the Queen. Let me say this again. They used wax seals, okay, which were actually a part of a structure of a chair, which he would use through scrying to audit people or to modify them before they came into the court of the proximity of the Queen, Queen Elizabeth I. So then Dianetics or Dianism did not begin with L. Ron Hubbard. So then, as we go forward here, then there was a German scientist by the name of Franz Frederick Anton Mesmer. Franz Anton Mesmer, capital Mesmer. Well, the term mesmer, this is where we get the term to mesmerize, Jason. To mesmerize, or the term clairvoyeur or clairvoyance. This is rooted in the psychology here of L. Ron Hubbard. So Franz Anton Mesmer was a mesmerist, capital Mesmerist. Yes, that word exists. It means one who clairvoys or modifies or causes a person to see. To see through what? The modification of today, what they call an e-meter. So the e-meter is just an instrument that was actually used by Sidney Gottlieb. Now, if you guys get a chance, before we go further here into the history of Dianetics, okay, There is a CIA manual called EBARK, capital EUBARK, which is an interrogation manual, Jason, that came out in 1953, the same year that L. Ron Hubbard incorporated the Church of Scientology. He
How do you
created the
spell
church.
that, Bishop?
EBARK, capital EUBARK. Yes, capital EUBARK.
Not
Now,
coming up.
it's not coming up? Okay. So then, let me
here
break
it
this.
is. Here it is. I got
Got
it.
it? Okay. Good, excellent. So then, Sidney Gottlieb, okay, who was also a Scientologist himself, who worked with L. Ron Hubbard. Now, your listeners can go to ci.gov/the Freedom of Information Act, okay? Through the Freedom of Information Act, it gives documents, unclassified documentation, that L. Ron Hubbard was subsidized, not just by the CIA, but according to L. Ron Hubbard's son, okay? I believe his name is Ronald DeWolf. He said that the KGB, Jason, now he said this under oath, he said that the KGB financially supported L. Ron Hubbard during the 70s and the middle part of the 80s.
Why would they do that?
Well, according to his son, that L. Ron Hubbard has Swiss accounts all over the world, okay, offshore accounts, that just according to his son, whether his son is telling the truth or not, I don't know, but according to his son, that the KGB will funnel money through what we call front companies, okay?
Right, yeah.
Front companies, or companies that would be as a front, just like the CIA. And mind you, Jason, before the hour is up, we're going to connect, remember, the Church of Scientology to the creation of the E-meter, okay, Vonnie Matheson, who is a direct descendant of James Matheson. And James Matheson's, who imported opium, okay? And mind you, Jason, the family that supported the Jardine Matheson Company that forced opium into the lives of the Chinese, right, was a family by the name of the Sassoon family. Baghdadi Jews, and mind you, I'm not saying because they're Jews, I'm just saying that they had financially supported James Matheson and William Jardine to infiltrate China during the First and Second Opium War. Well, why is that name Sassoon so critical? They have a descendant, Vidal Sassoon, of the hair care product magnate, who was also a Scientologist. Huh. So you see, so there these connections here that we talk about: Boule, Church of Scientology, Dianetics, Dionism, Theosophical Society, okay, Aleister Crowley, Thelema, all of these connections to the Jardine Matheson Corporation, which you can look them up to right now, Jason. They have a corporation, a conglomerate in Hong Kong, but they were chartered in Bermuda. That company today is worth billions of dollars because of the opium drug war on the Chinese people back in the 1800s, which Vonnie Matheson is a direct descendant of James Matheson. This is heavy here. Now,
there's one other thing I wanted to touch on real quick, Bishop, with Vonnie Matheson, because I've never heard of this person before today, but it is interesting to note that the Wikipedia entry says that Vonnie G. Matheson is also known by the pseudonym Dex Volney. And it seems that, at least in my experience, social engineers, one of the hallmarks is they all seem to use alternate names.
You know what, Jason, again, you hit a nerve in me. And one day I want us to get into William Shakespeare. But see, the term William Shakespeare, the name, that's not his real name.
Right.
His real name was Sir Francis Bacon.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Sir Francis Bacon
Was
was
Shakespeare.
also, he was also a part of what we call the Knights of the Round Table. He was one of their secretaries or writers. He constantly writes about the Knights of the Round Table. He was a part of the Illumination Society. Okay. So then Sir Francis Bacon has to hide his Illuminati ties, pre-Illuminati, that predates 1776 with Adam Weishaupt. So then Francis Bacon has to use the name William Shakespeare. Shakespeare, and that term Shakespeare is in the book of Psalm in the Bible, another topic for another day. So these monikers that they use, Sir Francis Bacon, Shakespeare, Vonnie Matheson, Dave Vonnie, okay? Now, if you get a chance, Jason, look up Tellers of the Weird Tales, Tellers of the Weird, capital EIRD Tales, or just type in Vonnie G. Matheson, right? Part 4. In other words, he was not only an author, but he was also a lover of modern electronic magazines. Again, Tellers of Weird Tales.blogspot.com. Tellers of Weird Tales.blogspot.com, or just type in Vonnie G. Matheson, Tellers of Weird Tales. If you go down on that page, you'll see a cover of a magazine that he constantly was a contributor to, okay, later on in the 1950s. But this magazine cover goes back to 1912. And this magazine cover says Modern Electrics. Now, one may say, Bishop, what does this picture of this big head alien have anything to do with the Nation of Islam or the Church of Scientology? The Nation of Islam, Jason, teaches that there was a black scientist by the name of Yakub, going back 6,000 years, whose nickname was Big Head, just like on the picture of the Modern Electrics magazine here on this site, tellersofweirdtales.blogspot. And you see this alien, okay, which in the mind of Elijah Muhammad represents now Yakub creating a white race. I know it's crazy. Look at the young white man coming out of the container. So then behind the alien, it looks like a window, but if you look closely, Jason, it is a crescent with multiple stars.
Now, I wasn't able to find that image, Bishop. I was looking for it, but we've got a lot of Weird Tales magazines or comic books here, but...
This was a January 1912. January 1912. So then, yeah, Tellers of Weird Tales. So artists and writers in the Unique magazine. So Vonnie G. Matheson, or Vonnie G. Matheson, Hugo Gernsback. Hugo Gernsback, capital Gernsback. So Vonnie G. Matheson, Hugo Gernsback. And they have a title here of this op-ed called Scientification. Scientification. It gets back to the acronym Scientology. This is where L. Ron Hubbard, Elijah Muhammad, Wallace D. Farr, that we talked about him several weeks ago, has created two organizations, Jason, out of the mindset of a science fiction novel. Black Yakub, creating a white race, okay? Xenu, capital E, capital Xenu, Battlestar Galactica. So the Church of Scientology, along with the Nation of Islam, is nothing more than a deep state psyop science fiction entity. That's all it is. And this is the reason why Louis Farrakhan has joined the Nation of Islam. Because according to the teachings of the Nation of Islam, Yakub, okay, teams up with who? Xenu, capital Xenu, which is one of the characters of L. Ron Hubbard and was it Battle
Battlefield
Galactica?
Earth. Battlefield
Yeah,
Earth.
thank you. And so it's not by accident that Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam connected with the Church of Scientology. Now, getting back to Dianetics here, man, this is powerful here. So then we get to Dianism. So then John Dee was the progenitor. He was the one that created Dianetics 400 years before there was an L. Ron Hubbard. Charles Poyen, capital Poyen, going back to the 1800s, was a Dianist. A man by the name of Phinehas Parkhurst, capital Phineas Parkhurst Quimbley, capital Quimbly. Okay, along with Henry M. Parkhurst in the early 1900s. Henry M. Parkhurst, Jason, published a book in 1882 called Diana. Now, remember Dianetics. Diana, a psychophysiological essay on sexual relations. Again, Diana, a psychophysiological, capital Fyzio, logical essay on sexual relations for married men and women. Again, this term here, Diana, Diane, is the name of a Roman goddess, Jason, in Roman mythology, which means absolute sexual purity. It's this magic sexual initiation rite. When we talked about Jack Parsons and when we talked about L. Ron Hubbard's connected with Jack Parsons, okay, in Aleister Crowley.
Ooh.
So
You've just caused me to remember something, Bishop. They were hanging out with a woman named Diana Dors, who was having sex parties. She was married to Richard Dawson.
Oh, my God. Ooh. Repeat that again, Jason. I had to write this. I never heard of that before. Repeat that.
Yeah, months ago, I did a bunch of videos with a former associate named Quinn Michaels, and we spoke a lot about Diana Dors. And she was a British model, I guess, who was married to Richard Dawson. And, you know, the show Hogan's Heroes, the actor from Hogan's Heroes, became somewhat infamous for making an unbelievably large number of amateur porno films. And what he would do is, you know, he was very popular from the TV show, so he would go to bars and parties and strip clubs and meet women and bring them back to these big parties. And he was an early adopter of home video equipment, so he would, you know, video record their sexual encounters. Not too dissimilar from, you know, today's version of that, Jeffrey Epstein.
Exactly. And if we can say Jeffrey Epstein was a Dianist, whether or not he used the word, he was a Dianetical type of person, where the term, and again, what I'm about to say to some of your listeners who may be Scientologists, I'm not saying that this is happening within the Church of Scientology. I'm going to reveal what the word Dianetic in the term Scientology means. It is the spirit behind a word. So then, this term Dianetics or Dianism was also propagated by a woman by the name of Mary Baker Eddy, capital E-double-D-Y, who was the founder, Jason, of the Christian Science Church during the last half of the 19th century in New England, where she intermixed Christianity with science, right, with Babylonian mysticism. And so then now you have L. Ron Hubbard. And now before I get to him, with this term Dianetics, there was a cult going back to the 1600s by the name of the Dianetic cult, or the Dianic cult, capital D-I-A-N-I-C. So then, L. Ron Hubbard is a studier. He absolutely engulfs himself himself into world religions, into the Theosophical Society, into Kabbalistical teachings, into Hinduism, into Shinduism. Okay, all of these isms he begins to study and begins to incorporate these occultic teachings. Now, by the way, to those of you listeners who know the writings of the Sanskrit, do you know, Jason, that the term Dianetics is an interpretation within the Sanskrit Hindu word tantric, capital Tantric. Tantric, okay, is a Sanskrit word meaning sexual initiation, or a sexual utopian. This is the template of the doctrine of Dianetics. I'm not attacking any person. I'm attacking the belief system and the dogma of what they call Dianetics, which is the Bible of the Church of Scientology. Also, Jason, within the Sanskrit, there's another acronym for the term Dianetics, and that is the term Dharana, capital Dharana, which represents a collection or a concentration of the mind where the self, the person, is a god. I want you to write that this is important, where the person themselves is a god. Now, to Scientologists who are listening today, you never heard of this before, because the upper echelons within the Church of Scientology, they're not teaching you this. But if we break down the Sanskrit word dharana even further, Jason, it goes into an acronym word, Dhri, capital Dhri. Guess what it means? It means clairvoyance or a clearing. It's yoga purification. You get into chakras now. So then, when we talk about Scientology being the third opium, and this is the reason why in 1953, okay, that the CIA, through the MK Ultra program, was birthed through Sidney Gottlieb. And then 8 months later, in 1953, in December, Jason, the Church of Scientology is born. Now, Jason, I don't know if you heard of this occultic woman by the name of Helena Blavatsky. They call her Madame Blavatsky.
Never heard
She
of
was
her.
a Russian occultist.
Oh, I have heard of her.
Yes. Of the Theosophical Society that she
Yeah,
created.
I've heard of her.
Yes, she created the Theosophical Society, I believe in 1875 here in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
But the logo of the Theosophical Society has two pyramids, okay, in a swastika at the top of the pyramid. It has two pyramids in a swastika at the top of the pyramid. Now, Jason, the logo or the insignia of Scientology,
it's got an ankh in there as well, and a snake eating its tail.
There you go. Thank you. A snake eating its tail is the circle. So then the Church of Scientology's insignia, and thank you for pointing that out, Jason, because I almost forgot. The logo for Scientology is two pyramids or paraminds, clairvoyance, clearing mind, with the letter S, which is actually a serpent, Jason, going through the upper pyramid and the lower pyramid of the logo of the Church of Scientology. Okay, so I want to point that out because that's important here. So the logo of the Theosophical Society is in right connection, Jason, to the logo of the Church of Scientology. With the upper pyramid, the mind, the lower pyramid, which represents the life flow of the person, and the serpent going through the upper abode and the lower abode. It's occultic, Jason, okay? Now, but we're almost done here. So this is powerful here. So as this will be, I believe, a 2 or 3 part series on Scientology. It is what I call the Opium War of Deception. So then, getting back to MK Ultra,
Sorry,
LSD.
Bishop, before you move off of this Helena Blavatsky, it just causes me to recall that there is a school within Oxford University called the Blavatnik School of Government. I wonder if there's any relation. The names seem kind of close.
Wow. I did not, what there could be very well be a connect. That's a great, great connection, Jason. I'm going to do some research on that. That's a great lookup. That's why you're a great host and researcher, my friend. Again, in 1953, the Central Intelligence Agency supports L. Ron Hubbard. Now, the line that's been pulled out by the Church of Scientology or the CIA has been trying to bring us down since the 50s. That's a lie. The Church of Scientology is protected not only by Louis Farrakhan, a Boule in the Boule Secret Society, which we call the Nation of Islam, but the federal government is protecting the Church of Scientology. Why? It's using the Church of Scientology as a present-day psyop, Jason. Now, I want to get to this term here, mind control, and LSD in connection to the E-meter. So then every auditor, and I've heard people are paying up to $20,000, $30,000 to be audited.
Wow.
So then they're paying thousands of dollars, Jason, in order to have someone to audit or to extract traumas from their mindset. But what's happening, Jason, the E-meter is a present-day MK Ultra machine. That's all it is. And so then it's also what I call an electronic opium. Also, the term opium comes from the Sanskrit word opion, capital O-P-I-O-N, or opiate. Guess what it means? It means modification or clearing or auditing. So opium, opion, opiate, according to the Sanskrit, Jason, represents modification, represents auditing, a clairvoyance of that which is not reality. So then they keep records. The Church of Scientology keeps records of every person that they audit. What are they doing with those records? If a person gets out of line, they use that information against them. And mind you, the wife of David Miscavige, I think that's his name, the state leader, his wife has been missing for 14 years. No one knows where she is.
How is that not investigated by the police? That's quite odd.
Thank you. Why is it not investigated by the police? Why? And there's a reason for that. And so then as we come in here, and it's interesting getting, as we keep a mental paper clip on Dianetics, Dianism, Dianetical mindset, the Theosophical Society. Remember, again, Jason, the Opium Wars between 1839 to 1860. William Jordan and James Matheson were employees of the East India Company, which was Rothschild controlled to bring opium into Central and Southern Asia. Okay, mind you, the term opium, opiate, means modification. It means the altering of a soul, the transformation, the metamorphosis of that which is not reality. So the Chinese government, Jason, the dynasty there in China, they were fighting in a drug war. Why did the British nation want drugs into China? To control China.
Yeah.
So then the term opium means modification. Well, who financially supported the opium drug trade? The Sassoon dynasty out of India. which their descendants hundreds of years later was a man by the name of Vidal Sassoon.
Wasn't there
So
also some connection to the Vanderbilts with the name Sassoon?
yes, there is a connection. There's an American connection to the Sassoon. Matter of fact, Jason, I'm so glad. Again, you hit another nerve with me. All of these Knights of the Round Table families, they intermarry. Not only intermarry into other families, they never marry outside of their family. Outside of a family that is not on the same financial level. But sick-wise, Jason, they also intermarry within themselves. So then the Vanderbilts, they have a connection to the Sassoon dynasty, okay, who supported the drug trade in China from 1839 to 1860. The company today, Jason, the Jardine Matheson Company, which is a conglomerate company worth billions of dollars, that money generationally came from the opium drug trade, where James Matheson, being a progenitor of Vonnie Matheson, Eamon. So what I'm doing, Jason, connecting these ties here, okay, between Boulay, Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, CIA, KGB, all of these connections here. Again, my friend, this is what we call the third Opium War, because Scientology has become the opium of nations. And I believe, if President Trump is listening, he's got to shut down that entity. Because what they're doing, Jason, they are destroying lives. And you're going to have people write you today saying that what Bishop was saying is not true. This is all documented, okay?
There's already been a lot of people, Bishop, and while we've been talking, my phone has been exploding, which normally does not happen. Now, Bishop, I hate to cut you off, but we've gone over our hour here. I feel like you and I could speak for days on this topic. Do we want to maybe save some more for next week, or is there something you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I want to say something in closing quickly here. And those of you, and we're talking about Scientology, the third open war of deception, those of you who are a part of Alcoholics Anonymous, your founder, okay, Bill Wilson, not only began Alcoholics Anonymous through a seance, Jason, I kid you not, in 1935, where the 12-step program was the template or the foundation that built Alcoholics Anonymous, but also Bill Wilson was a Dianist, okay? And so we'll get into that next week. So thank you so much. There's so much to unpack here, and concerning Scientology and the third opium war of deception.
Right. And of course, for people who are just seeing the Bishop for the first time, you can listen to him on the radio if you go over to liferadionj.com. Bishop, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Absolutely. liferadionj.com/Gaiters. That's Gaiters. Again, quickly, liferadionj.com/Gaiters, or also go to usaradio.com, usaradio.com. So, Jason, this is some powerful stuff, and your phone's going to blow up even more, because what I'm doing is just exposing, not people, but exposing the etymology of the words of Dianetics and Scientology and E-meter. It's plainly a cult. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to next week.
Certainly. And for people who want to support the global spiritual revolution, you can go to paypal.me/GSRR Media Group, and you can become a sponsor. You can send some money to the Bishop and his group. It's a fascinating conversation every week. You're touching on topics that are so relevant, but so foreign to myself and many of the viewers, yet it connects to things that we do know. So it's interesting to have these conversations, Bishop. This is the whole point of Crowdsource the Truth, bringing together disparate guests with different information about different topics so that we can all share it and learn more. People who want to become sponsors of Crowdsource the Truth can go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You're going to enjoy a large and growing library of sponsor-exclusive content, and you keep this channel and this program sustainable through your sponsorship. There are no corporate sponsors, no mega millionaires who are controlling the narrative and driving the content here. You are the sponsor, and that's how you know that this information is for you and by members of the public. The Bishop and I just met through doing this show, so it's fascinating to learn so much of what you know, Bishop, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
I'll see you next week, my friend. It's going to be even more power-packed. So definitely, let's get ready for next week. And to all your listeners, thank you so much for your patience, because there's so much to unpack. And it's my goal is to awaken people out of their sleep, to awaken them so that they can be free in this generation.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Bishop. We'll be back in just under an hour with Larry Nichols. We're going to be talking about the latest moves of the Democrats involving the impeachment. So don't miss that. I'll see everybody at 3. Thanks for watching.